Today we're going to talk about culinary herbs. But not just any herbs. Herbs and foods that came directly from heaven. The first story comes to us from southern China. A woman was watching desperately as her father grew ill. She cried out to the gods, and one of them heard her. The god, who apparently no one even remembers the god's name, so let's call him Sammy. Sammy tells her, go into the forest, there's a particular bush. And when you get there, the bush will have a very fragrant herb, and it will have the marking of the 5 phases on it. The leaves will be green. The seeds will be black. The outer aspect of this herb will be red, while the inner aspect will be white. The flowers will be yellow. She walked and walked through the woods, into the area that people didn't go. It was said to be dangerous and full of wild animals. She walked until the path grew small, and until finally there was no path as she headed deeper into the woods. On the wind she caught a fragrance, and she followed it until she found the bush full of Sichuan peppercorn, or in Chinese, Hijau. She picked the Hijau until she filled a few baskets full, and she turned around just as it was getting dark to head home. She went as fast as she could, but soon night crept up on her. She was being tracked by many wild beasts. She heard some rustling in the forest, and then she felt bites and claws. She could make out that they were leopards, masked civets, and crawling serpents. She shook, and many of the Hijau went out of her basket, but she ran as fast as she could until she got into the clearing, and eventually got home with only minor injuries. She gave her father the Hijau, and he quickly recovered. Unfortunately, the disease had spread to the other villagers. She told them about the bush, but they were all too afraid to go down the path, especially in their sickened state. She prayed to Sammy, the nameless god, and Sammy told her that the bush that she had taken from was already gone. If she wanted to cure her village, she would have to sacrifice herself. She took some of the remaining Hijau seeds, and she went into a hole and sacrificed herself. From her grave, the Hijau grew. As a result of that, the remaining villagers and the neighboring villages were all saved. It's a very tragic story, but I'm glad she did us all a solid because Hijau is delicious. It is in every aspect of Sichuanese cooking. It's incredibly healthy, and it gives a very unique mala. It's called numbing, tangy flavor. It's slightly citrusy. When you're hiking in Sichuan in the hills, you can smell it from quite a distance, and as you approach it, you can eat the fresh berries. They're absolutely incredible. We're going to go over a little bit of the pharmacology and how you might use it in not only Chinese cooking, but in American cooking, even if you're on the run. Sichuan peppercorn inhibits the growth of cancer cells. It kills pain and is an anti-inflammatory. There are a lot of martial art formulas, and in particular, linmins for older people, that use Hijau, or Sichuan peppercorn, to kill pain and affect inflammation, especially in cold, damp environments. My mother-in-law uses a mixture of Hijau. She cooks it in oil and then uses the oil on her knees. This especially is important in winter when the cold and damp of Sichuan seems to feel like it's just reaching inside your bones. This is why the entire population of Sichuan enjoys these peppercorns. It helps to fight the inflammation. Cold, damp environments can influence arthritis because imbalances in immune factors can contribute to arthritic pain. In addition, Hijau can kill parasites, and this is really important because I like street food. I know you're not supposed to eat it. I know occasionally it's found to have traces of rat poison in it because it's actually rat. Whatever, it's delicious, so I eat Hijau because it kills any parasites I might be coming into contact with. Hijau can also inhibit thrombus formation and it can reduce strokes and heart attacks. It's very cardioprotective. In addition, it can inhibit digestive ulcers. At a low dose, which is what we use with cooking, it increases intestinal movement. In higher doses, that would be more clinical, 9 to 15 grams, it's going to actually reduce the intestinal movement. So it's dose dependent as to whether it increases intestinal movement or decreases it. It's a very powerful antioxidant, and it regulates intestinal bacteria. This is so important because our balance of gut flora can make or break our entire health. The gut-brain axis can help to influence our intelligence. Sichuan peppercorn can also regulate blood sugar, and it affects the gene expression of pancreatic enzymes. In Sichuan, it's very hard to get fat. If you see someone who's obese, they've probably been drinking a lot or have a thyroid condition. We knew a woman from Nigeria who was watching a program on Sichuan while she was in Africa, and it mentioned that there are very few fat people in Sichuan. The next month, she moved to Chengdu and had an exercise program consisting of smoking lots of weed and eating the local food. That's it. In the next year and a half, she lost half her body weight. Don't worry, even if you feel like you have a genetic predisposition, Hijau can flip the switches on these genes to help you begin losing fat. If it's so wonderful, why doesn't everybody know about it? Well, to be fair, everyone in East Asia does know about it. It was banned from the 1960s and was recently okayed by the FDA in 2005. The reason it was banned had nothing to do with its safety as far as human consumption, but they were afraid that it could potentially carry a parasite that would affect the citrus crops in California. It was conditionally okay within the context of 5-spice powder. Until 2005, if you wanted to buy it, you needed to go to a Chinese grocery store where it was brought in under different names. At culinary doses, it's relatively safe. So this is going to be anything under 3 grams. When you get up to 9 and 15 grams, then you really have to start using some caution, particularly for people who are pregnant or are having disorders of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, people who are having menopausal hot flashes, night sweats, should probably back off from using it in high doses. To be fair, this is never recommended in China. People will use it within the context of a larger formula, or it will be cooked into some oil with your ginger and garlic. Let's say for cooking vegetables, or for a hot pot, people will make large pots full of chili peppers and Hijau Sichuan peppercorn. They will dip food in it, let it cook, bring it out. The amount of Hijau you're going to actually be ingesting is relatively small. It's enough to increase some intestinal movement, to help reduce blood sugar and fat, but not enough to really cause these major changes in the body. To start with, I suggest that people get Sichuan peppercorn in powder form so that they can just shake it on the food that they're already eating or add it into a stew. It's good to get a feel for how much or how little you can tolerate the kind of numbing, spicy feel. It's very good in sauces. So oftentimes, let's say that we're having some Chinese radish or chicken, you may put it into a sauce that you dip. Maybe you could do that with buffalo wings. You just dip into a sauce that includes the Sichuan peppercorn, and it has a numbing, tingling sensation, but it wouldn't be overpowering at that level. If you want particulars on how to cook with it, we'll add some recipes within the show notes on botanicalbiohacking.com.
Good quality Hijau should have this bright red color and very strong smell. When you put just a little bit on the tip of your tongue, you will feel the numbness and tingling right there. That means it has really good quality. And also, the Hijau itself, the peppercorn itself, should be cracked open. According to the pharmacopoeia, good quality Hijau should have no less than 1.5% milliliter per gram of volatile oils. Usually, you will be able to find Sichuan peppercorn Hijau in all the Chinese grocery stores and most of the Asian grocery stores. We will post the Chinese character, and the pinyin and English name in our show notes at botanicalbiohacking.com. and you can show the people in the grocery stores what you're looking for if you have trouble finding it by yourself. At the same time, we will post some links on where you can get the Hijau online.
The next culinary herb is one of my favorite foods, and that is the artichoke. Artichoke, in Latin, is Cynara scolimus. The name Cynara comes from a Greek legend. In a song by the poet Quintus Horatius Flaccus, the first artichoke was described as being born of a lovely young girl who lived on the island of Zinari. The god Zeus was visiting his brother Poseidon one day, when as he came up out of the sea, he saw the beautiful young mortal. She wasn't frightened because, let's face it, she was a country bumpkin on an island. Much like the dodo bird, she was too naive to know to be scared. Zeus seized the opportunity to seduce her. He told her about all the rad Greek celebrities he knew, and because she was a bumpkin, she fell in love with him. He was very pleased with the girl, whose name was Cynara, and he decided to make her a goddess. His idea was that he would bring her back to Olympia and sneak her around when his wife was out of town. Cynara agreed and thought that it was pretty glamorous. However, after being there for a while, Cynara began to miss her family. She decided to go back to visit her mom and her aunts. So she snuck back into the world of mortals. When she came back to Mount Olympus, Zeus was enraged with her for leaving. Zeus, it should be said, is kind of a narcissist, so he doesn't really love people as much as uses them. So he picks up Cynara and tosses her to earth, and she falls like a meteor, crashing. And finally, in the place where she crashed, there were artichokes. In the 1st century, a Greek physician named Anazarbas Cilicia wrote about artichokes. He was a traveling surgeon with the Roman army. He collected information on remedies and put them in the herbal materia medica, called at the time the Dioscorides. This remained the authority on plant-based medicine for 1500 years. The ancient Greeks and Romans thought the artichokes were a delicacy and an aphrodisiac. The Greeks considered artichokes to be effective for securing the birth of boys. The name artichoke isn't Greek. It comes to us from the Arab al-karshuf instead of the Latin cynara. The reason why we don't call artichoke cynara to this day is that the current variety was improved upon by North African Moors, who called the artichokes al-karshuf. In Spanish, artichoke is alcachofa, which sounds rather similar to the Moorish pronunciation. In Mediterranean herbal traditions, artichoke was said to protect the liver. Modern pharmacology agrees. It's shown hepatoprotective effects, which means it protects the liver. It's also anti-carcinogenic, so it goes against cancer. It's antioxidant, antibacterial, anti-HIV, although I wouldn't bet my life on it. It also expels bile and increases bile production, which is very, very useful if you want to break down the fat that you're eating today, and also if you want to break down the fat that you've saved in your body over the years. This food is very effective for weight loss. I wouldn't say that for everybody, but if the weight loss has been caused as a result of damage to the liver, then artichokes may be your way out of it. So if you've had a lot of stress, a lot of late nights, and a lot of alcohol, then this may be a very effective culinary herb to incorporate into your diet. Artichokes can inhibit cholesterol synthesis and LDL oxidation. LDL is considered the lousy cholesterol, somewhat debatable, but at least the oxidation has been associated with cerebrovascular disease and cardiovascular disease. Artichokes lower the fat in your blood and the fat that's around your liver. They can reduce intestinal contractions and reduce gas by way of increasing bile. For quality criteria, there's not a lot of information in the Chinese pharmacological sources. However, we do have the US Department of Agriculture. According to them, a high-quality artichoke will have tightly closed, turgid outer bracts without signs of black tip, blistering, or browning. It should be medium to dark glossy green in color, and some cultivars may have a magenta color at the base of each bract. The artichoke should not be soft when squeezed or heavy for its size. Both thorny and thornless cultivars are used commercially. This next herb is one that we all know and love. Chocolate, like corn, is brought to us by our friend Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent of Mesoamerica. The legend goes that Quetzalcoatl was hanging out with his buddies, the Toltecs. Hanging out with the gods is obviously good, but if you have buddies you can party with in Cancun, you can't blame the guy, right? So after a lot of hospitality, he just loves the Toltecs. He says, "Alright, I'm going to give you a special plant that's only meant for the gods. This is going to give you special powers. It'll clean your heart. It'll increase your fertility. It'll help you live a long life." They said, "Cool." He said, "Alright, to grow it, I need to ask Tlaloc, the rain god, to water this, and Xochiquetzal, the goddess of fertility and vegetation, to really help move it along." Quetzalcoatl picked up the pods, roasted the kernels, and taught the Toltec women how to process it. They called this drink chocolatl, and since then we call it chocolate, or chocolatl, or cocolatl, take your pick. It was very prized by the Toltecs, and because it was the drink of the gods, it was used in ceremonies and reserved for the priests and royalty. Quetzalcoatl was enjoying life with the Toltecs, the priests were wiser than ever, they were doing good work, and society was in balance. Quetzalcoatl enjoyed hanging out on the hammock, sipping chocolate and tequila, and watching the waves roll in. The gods, however, were not pleased with what he had done. They were incredibly angry. The gods saw this as a sacrilege. They decided to take Quetzalcoatl down a notch, and at the same time turn his people against him. Quetzalcoatl's enemy, Tezcatlipoca, came to Earth in a spider form. Imagine a Mexican luchador wearing a Spider-Man outfit. This is how I picture Tezcatlipoca. He disguised himself as a pulque vendor, and he came across the worried Quetzalcoatl and said to him, "Here, have a drink. This will make you happy. Have some fermented agave drink," which today we would call tequila. Quetzalcoatl drank until he was drunk. Then he started to dance, because haven't we all been there? Maybe it's not pulque, but we've all hit the tequila a little too hard, and you start to dance, you start to make a little bit of a fool of yourself. If you haven't done this, and you don't have any religious objections or medical obligations not to do so, it's in your best interest to do this at least once in your life, if for no other reason than to understand what Quetzalcoatl went through. The Toltec people started to look at him and go, I don't know if this guy's so godlike. I don't really know if he's legit. Would a god get that drunk and make a fool out of himself? Apparently the answer was yes, but they didn't like it so much. In the morning, he woke up with a wicked hangover, and the people were kind of disgusted with him. Like, man, I thought you were a holy guy bringing us all this good herbal knowledge. You brought us corn, you brought us chocolate. That was amazing, but look at you, you're drunk in public. For shame, Quetzalcoatl. He was like, man, after all I did for you guys, you're going to be like that? He was really just shaking his head. He couldn't believe they had abandoned him. He decided to head out for the evening star. Just before he left, he got to the ocean, and just before he headed out for the morning star, he took one last cacao seed and planted it. And that was his last gift to the people who had already abandoned him. He took off for the morning star, shaking his head, but at least leaving the Toltec people with his gift. I just want to point out that the Toltecs nearly blew chocolate for all of us. If Quetzalcoatl hadn't decided to just do us one last solid, we may never have chocolate. For future reference, if a god comes to Earth and starts teaching us about different types of plants that only the gods are supposed to have, and they do something that makes the tabloids, just be easy on them. Because we all make mistakes, cut them some slack. They might just have the next chocolate. Over the last few millennia, chocolate has been used throughout Mesoamerica. It's been part of sacred rituals and reserved for priests. It's said that bitter flavors go to the heart, so chocolate is seen as being able to clear away negative emotions and help strengthen the function of the heart muscle itself. Although I couldn't find anything specifically about its ability to transform emotions within the realm of modern pharmacology, it does reduce inflammation. It's a very powerful antioxidant, and it's cardioprotective, which means it helps the heart muscle function. Cacao procyaidins prevent the development of obesity, insulin resistance, and impaired glucose tolerance during high-fat feeding. This is incredible because incidence of diabetes throughout the Americas is incredibly high, and the more native blood you have, the more likely you are to be susceptible to diabetes. One of the ways that you can help to prevent this is through an herb that's indigenous to North America. It's already a part of traditional American medicine. It was given to warriors to help them become more fertile and also to help their athletic performance. Cacao beans have been shown to increase nitric oxide, which is a vasodilator. It can help with both athletic and other forms of performance in daily life. Nitric oxide is also a powerful gasotransmitter. Your nerves release information that goes to other nerves, but they also release gas. And this gas, called nitric oxide, carries chemical information across the body and through membranes. When nitric oxide gets to cells, it commands them to start making more ATP, which we use for energy in our thoughts and in our muscles. This would have been a very important herb for the Aztec royalty. It would be a very important herb for the priests because it's going to help them think better. If it's helping to clear the heart emotionally and at the same time kicking up their cognitive performance and physical endurance, this is going to help them be at the top of their game. These are Toltec and Aztec nutraceuticals, and they would mix them with chili peppers. It was said that the chili peppers, mixed with a little bit of corn and the chocolate, helped to balance each other out. There were other herbs, of course, added to this mix, but this was kind of the three that would help to stabilize the body. This was used as well as kind of an athletic drink to help people run further and perform better in war ceremonies and playing the Mesoamerican ball game. According to early Spanish conquistadors, it was very bitter and they couldn't tolerate it. It was made very frothy, and this frothy aspect seems to be important to how it was consumed. But the way they consumed it was in its natural state, which is very bitter. In the Aztec Empire, cacao beans were used as currency, so when they were drinking cacao, when they were drinking chocolatl, they were drinking money. It was something like 5 beans to buy a baby, and I think 10 to get a chicken. It was so valuable because of its medicinal effects. When we look at a society as complex and vast as the Aztec Empire, a society that conquistadors said was more advanced than anything they had seen in Europe, we have to consider that these people prized cacao beans above anything else and used it as currency. And now we have access to it. If we're not doing ourselves the favor of enjoying it, we're missing out on, and we're also not really respecting the gift given to us by Quetzalcoatl. So drink your chocolate. If you want to get high-quality cacao beans, there are different sites that offer them online, supposedly hand-picked, organic from Costa Rica, this kind of thing. I wouldn't bother personally. The rule with getting high-quality, cost-effective Mexican herbs is to go to a Mexican grocery store and ask an old lady. You go find an abuelita, you ask her, she's going to know the best quality at the best price. The chocolate beans of today are probably a little bit different than the ones that the ancient Aztecs enjoyed. And the way it's prepared is obviously changed with Spanish influence. However, we do have a description from Hernán Cortés describing how they made the cacao into chocolate. Now, yes, I know, I'm taking the word of a conquistador. Yes, I know, I should definitely be getting more of a native perspective. However, all of those books were burned, and by were burned, I mean the Spanish burned them, so it's very hard to get a hold of. In any case, this is what Hernán, or Hernie as his friends called him, had to say about it. These seeds, which are called almonds or cacao, are ground and made into powder. And other small seeds are ground, and this powder is put into certain basins with a point. And then they put water on it and mix it with a spoon. And after having mixed it very well, they change it from one basin to another, so that a foam is raised, which they put in a vessel made for the purpose. And when they wish to drink it, they mix it with a certain small spoon of gold or silver or wood and drink it, and drinking it, one must open one's mouth, because being foam, one must give it room to subside and go down bit by bit. This drink is the healthiest thing and the greatest sustenance of anything you could drink in the world. Because he who drinks a cup of this liquid, no matter how far he walks, can go a whole day without eating anything else. So presumably, this was Cortez's weight loss plan, and maybe one that could be reintroduced because, as it is now, Mexico is one of the fattest countries on earth, and America isn't doing so great itself in that department. So if we look at the way that chocolate was prepared historically and begin to reintroduce that into our lives, we may reap the same benefits. So there we have 3 superfoods approved by the gods. We have Sichuan peppercorn to help you digest better, help warm the stomach, to counter obesity and pain. We have artichokes to help heal the liver from all of your Bacchussean exploits. And we have, last but not least, our own American chocolate, brought to us by Quetzalcoatl. If you would like more information, references, or resources, please check us out at botanicalbiohacking.com. If you found this information valuable, please share it with your friends and family.